ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa is currently addressing the Northern Cape's elective conference. The top five of the Provincial Executive of the party in the province were elected unopposed. Let's take you to that address by the President of the ANC. It is a virtual address.
Friends and friends, it is truly an honor, Comrade Zamani, to address this 9th Provincial Conference of the ANC in the Northern Cape. Ek wou so graag Springbok toe gekom het, maar die werk hou my ver van julle af. Ek sal julle nog weer kom kuier, want Springbok, as hulle sê in Engels, is my stomping ground. I used to come to Springbok a lot of times to organize mine workers in Kleinsie, in Koinas, and various copper mines in the area. So it's a part of the world that I really, truly love. And when you, Comrade Zamani, told me that the conference is going to be in Springbok, I got so elated, and I felt that I would come and visit Springbok again. In my young days, I used to know every corner of Springbok in a nice way, not in a funny way. So, ek is jammer dat ek kon nie daar wees nie. It is a remarkable achievement to have organized and convened the regional conferences, and now to be convening in a very cold Springbok, I'm told, the provincial conference. It is also remarkable that so many of the branches have held their own elective branch meetings, and it's fantastic. I often tell people that, you know, the ANC, in some people's eyes, might be thought to be have weakened and on its weak knees and so on. But I've often said the ANC is alive. The ANC lives, and whether they like it or not, the ANC leads, and it will continue to lead. And you, comrades, from yourself, Comrade Zamani, and other officials and branch leaders, you are the true representation of what the ANC is all about. And I'm so delighted to hear you say, yes, you have been forging organic unity over some time. And I call it organic revolutionary unity, because we are living through very challenging times. But despite that, our movement continues to live, and it shows perseverance and dedication. And to have made this conference, the first provincial conference in this era of COVID in the country, is quite an achievement. So I take off my hats to you all and applaud you. Comrades, as you all well know, we are living through challenging times. And I've often said that even at the NEC meetings that the ANC has had challenging times in the past. The ANC has lived through many epochs. It lived through the First World War. It lived through the 1918 pandemic. The ANC was there. It lived through the Second World War. It lived through the global depression. I was reading a history of how our leadership of the ANC charted our glorious movement throughout all these challenges, and the presidents who were then leading the organization, and how they navigated their way through the pandemic, the wars, as well as the global depression, and as well as the formal codification of apartheid in 1948. So our movement has lived through thick and thin, and maybe one day our historian, Comrade Zamani, should detail the various epochs that our movement has been through and how it survived. But one can say that our movement has never been through an epoch like this, where we've had a virus that has engulfed the whole world, but at the same time, we are in government. And the other times we were not in government. We could point fingers, but now we need to steer the ship to calmer waters ourselves, where we've got more than 10 million people unemployed, where we've got a virus that is killing so many people, youth unemployment. And it is the ANC that is confronting all these challenges. And it was for this reason that the ANC identified 5 priorities for our movement in 2021. Firstly, it was that we should act together with all South Africans to defeat the COVID pandemic. And secondly, we should place our economy on a path of renewal and recovery. And thirdly, we should forge ahead with the fundamental renewal of the ANC in line with its core mandate and values. And fourthly, we should strengthen developmental and participatory local government and achieve a decisive win in the upcoming local government elections. And fifthly, we should, and in the course of strengthening local government, we should strengthen the capacity of our government more broadly at provincial and national level. And fifthly, we should build a better Africa and a better world. Now, those are the key priorities that we identified for this year. And if you look at all of them, comrades, you can see how correct the leadership of the ANC has been in depicting all those. But as Comrade Zamani says, in all these priorities, which we can either depict as challenges, there are also a number of opportunities. With regard to COVID, we've identified COVID as a challenge and as the enemy that we've got to defeat. The measures that you have also taken to make this conference as safe as you possibly can, such as convening a set number of delegates in the various marquees, making sanitizers and masks readily available, and cordoning off areas proves the point that there is deep understanding of what we are facing. It also points to a movement that is very aware of the risks that are posed by this pandemic. Indications, comrades, are that our country is entering a third wave as the rising COVID-19 infections are just going up. And we must do everything in our power to mitigate against this impact. We are once again going to have to remind South Africans to remain vigilant and protect themselves and each other. The Northern Cape, unfortunately, has been the highest per capita COVID, has seen the highest per capita COVID infections in the country at nearly 34 to 100, and the next closest province being the Free State at nearly 15 per 100 infections. This province has seen a spike in infections during the last few weeks, and the hospital admissions tell us that these infection rate is high as admissions have been rising considerably. It has been reported that the province's ICU capacity is under a great deal of stress. And the most immediate priority for the ANC in the province must therefore be to bring the infections under control and to protect the health system. Ons moet dit sê hier dat ons kan nie met COVID speel nie. Dit is 'n gevaarlike siekte. En die prys van onverantwoordelijkheid is te hoog. If we don't take responsibility, it is very high. Every one of us has been touched by this disease. We all know someone who has been sick, and many of us have lost loved ones to this horror. I want to reiterate that our ability to manage this phase of the pandemic will depend on the behavior of our people, the speed with which we can vaccinate eligible citizens, and the extent to which we contain further spread. Let us urge the elderly to register, and upon receipt of their SMSs, we should go for their vaccinations. There have been great stories of how those who are eligible, particularly the elderly, have been treated quickly and have not really had to waste a lot of time. But there have also been stories where people have waited far too long. We are going to get rid of all these wrinkles and to make sure that there is quick service as we increase the vaccination process. Everyone, as we have always said, and we need to say it over and over, that the masks are our biggest defense at the moment, although vaccines are going to be our ultimate defense in the medium to long term. And the ANC must intensify our campaign to remind our people to adhere to these public health and safety measures. As the African National Congress, we must be repeating that message over and over. And in many ways, that will demonstrate to our people of the care and the compassion that the ANC has for the lives of our people. When we move to the next phase of the vaccination program, we must ensure that many people, everyone gets vaccinated, because we are only all safe when everyone is safe. And I think that's the message we should carry forward. If one is not safe, then we are all not safe. I was saying yesterday at a seminar where we're present with the President of France, President Emmanuel Macron, that we need to ensure that all of us in the world have equitable access to vaccines. This has been a major, major challenge. And we were saying this virus started off in a particular country in the world, and it just started spreading like mushroom. So what it really requires is that all of us need to be made safe, because if anyone in any part of the world is not safe, it could spread again. Now, despite our best efforts in making incremental progress, international cooperation on the matter of vaccine production and distribution is not showing as much success as we would have liked to see. And you will all be aware, comrades, that when the issue of vaccines availability was a reality, South Africa and India raised the issue of the waiver at the WTO, World Trade Organization level, to waive the TRIPS, the intellectual property protections that resides at the World Trade Organization for manufacturers and innovators of these vaccines. We said, because we are facing a global challenge, let us waive that restriction, waive the TRIPS restriction. Now we're delighted, comrades, that more than 100 countries around the world have supported South Africa's and India's call. And when the call was made, some people were thinking that, these two countries, developing economy countries, they can't really have weight in their call. And comrades, our voice and our call has gained a lot of currency. And a number of big countries have started support. The United States is one, and France is another, and so on. And we're making a basic call saying that we're all at war and the enemy is one. And we all therefore need the weaponry that we can utilize against this. It's not, one country fighting another where you can say your intellectual property in devising a weapon is your preserve alone. It should be our common preserve, because we are preserving the lives of all our people. And we have said they should be waived for the duration of the pandemic. And they are raising all manner of things, innovation, so on, intellectual property. But we are not relenting on our message, because we believe it's a correct one. And what do we want? We want to be able to manufacture our own vaccines. Africa has just had 2% of its population vaccinated, and yet more northern countries have had up to 40% and some up to 70%. And we are saying it cannot be. It cannot be that Africa is left behind. And we are pleased that countries of Africa have coalesced and joined hands and are saying we want to manufacture on our own, we want technology transfer, we want the waiver to happen. Because it is truly absurd, almost obscene, that Western governments must incentivize some of their reluctant citizens to be vaccinated, while those of us in the developing economies are literally dying for vaccines. We are simply asking for a waiver of these vaccine patents while the pandemic is raging under, yes, specified conditions. They have argued that many African countries may not have the capacity. And we have said to them, don't tell us whether we have capacity or not. It must be up to us to say, yes, in this regard, we don't have capacity. And we are arguing that we do have capacity. And yesterday, we had this seminar where President Macron of France was present. And we had all these many speakers who were saying we have capacity. In our country, we've got, at the very least, two that have capacity. Aspen, which is an originated South African company that operates globally now in 150 countries, which also has as its shareholders the workers of our country who work in the chemical area, and BioVac, in which the government has a shareholding. And we said, for starters, this is what we have, but we want this opportunity. This is where Comrade Zamani's point comes in, opportunity. We want the opportunities to be opened for Black business, Black industrialists and Black business people who operate in the health sector can come to the fore once technology has been transferred, know-how has been transferred. They will be able to go and raise funding very easily and be able to manufacture the hundreds of millions of vaccines that are needed in the world, and not only on our continent, but in the world, because we do want to export to Europe, to the Americas, to Asia, and all over. Vaccine manufacturing cannot be and must not be the preserve of only northern economies. We can do it as well. So, comrades, we're pushing ahead with this. Unfortunately, our voice is being heard, and I'll be going to the G7 and in a few weeks, and we're going to be advocating this. This is a process that we would like to see achieved. They have agreed so far that they will give support and so forth, but we say we want more. We want the waiver, because through the waiver, we will be able to enable a number of companies, especially Black companies, to come to the fore, to get into this space. So whilst COVID is a great challenge for us and people are dying, we say we can defeat COVID. Vaccines must be made available. We need more and more vaccines, but we also need the capability to be able to have vaccines or to manufacture vaccines beyond this COVID pandemic. The second issue, comrades, is to place our economy on a path of renewal and recovery. Now, we continue to face this challenge posed by the deepening poverty, unacceptably high unemployment levels, and persistent inequality. Our unemployment rate has been rising over time, and it is the ANC's responsibility to address this issue, because we cannot sit back as a self-respecting movement and see more and more of our people being unemployed. Our efforts to comprehensively address these challenges have been unavoidably and negatively impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. Despite the unexpected and unforeseen nature of the pandemic, we responded relatively well as a government and as a people. South Africans largely adhered to the lockdown regulations, and at the government level, we gave assistance to our people in many, many ways. We've also been able to target our financial and social and other assistance programs to a large degree and introduce an unprecedented assistance package, which almost amounted to 10% of our GDP. Unprecedented in the history of our country. Now, these programs that we implemented made a meaningful difference and mitigated against the worst ravages of the pandemic to our people's lives. We are aware of the teething problems and challenges experienced, such as delayed UIF payments and the relatively slow uptake of the loan guarantee scheme. But our pledge is that we learn from these experiences and will do even better. We continue to watch this space to see what else should government be seeking to do. This pandemic, comrades, has had a devastating effect on an already ailing economy. Now, here in the Northern Cape, julle het almal gesien dat baie besighede toegemaak het tydens hierdie pandemie, where a number of our people were running businesses, they've had to shut down. And it has led to not only a loss of jobs, but also to a difficult situation for our households, our people. When discussing the effects of the pandemic as the leadership of the Alliance, we agreed that this devastating and horrific pandemic also presented us with an opportunity to fundamentally and radically transform our economy and society. We can rebuild rather, in a more equitable and humane manner, and ensure that more Black people, more women, more youth, more rural people can participate fully and productively in the economy. Now, building on the directive set out by the ANC and the Alliance, government developed the Economic Recovery and Reconstruction Plan to guide our economy to grow more inclusively and equitably. And there are 4 priority interventions in terms of the plan, which are to roll out a massive infrastructure initiative throughout the country, rapidly expanding energy generation capacity. As you know, our energy is constrained, but also to embark on an employment stimulus to create jobs and support livelihoods and drive industrial growth through local production and making South African exports more competitive. Now, the Northern Cape has carried the legacy of being the biggest province geographically and the most underdeveloped for far too long. We must change the mindset and the trajectory to seeing it as, or rather the mindset to seeing it as the province with the most potential for development. There are many initiatives that will benefit the Northern Cape under the plan that we've crafted, either through the expansion of existing initiatives or implementing new programs. I speak here of programs such as expanded support for small businesses through centers for entrepreneurship and rapid incubation at the DR and Katu TVET colleges. The centers will help small and medium enterprises set up new small businesses, and more centers are planned for Namaqualand and Pixley Kaisaka Seme region, leading to more jobs and sustainable livelihoods. There are also various infrastructure projects planned for the Northern Cape, such as the planned refurbishment of existing water infrastructure, drilling of boreholes, and other initiatives across several municipalities in the province. This will both assist the agricultural sector and create jobs in the province. So those are some of the key areas that we want to focus on to change the landscape of the province. Comrade Zamani, whom we have deployed as Premier, continues to be preoccupied with these matters. I know this because each time he and I converses, it is about economic development that we converse and to see how best we can change the trajectory of the Northern Cape so that it does indeed become a sunrise province. Now, the other priority, of course, is forging ahead with the fundamental renewal of the ANC in line with its core mandate and values. Now, in addition to the challenges posed by COVID-19, our movement is also going through a period characterized by instances of ill discipline, disrespect for organizational norms, values, and resistance. This is not unexpected. Any project of renewal and rebuilding will encounter resistance from those who benefited from the deviant practices of the past. Here in the Northern Cape, you have also had your own challenges posed by disunity in fighting factionalism, greed, and corruption. But I am glad to have heard Comrade Zamani say, over the past few months, we have been working on organic unity, which I call revolutionary organic unity. This pleases us exceedingly because ever since NASREC, we've been seeking to forge unity across the organization. And unity that is based on principle, not on convenience. We are determined to execute the mandate given to us by the NASREC conference, because delegates at that conference were clear when they said all ANC members from the NEC to ordinary branch members must work harder together to unite and to rebuild this glorious movement of our people. When we speak of unity, we are referring, as I said, to a principled unity. And now in the Northern Cape, you've coined a wonderful word, organic unity. It is unity that must arise from the branches, the basic units of the African National Congress, based on the positions and values of our movement. Unity does not mean that we must close ranks at all costs and at all times. When a comrade is denigrating or attacking the ideals and the mission of our movement, then we need to call that comrade to order. And that is unity. That is what we mean by forging unity. And the renewal process, the act of being able to call out comrades who are deviating, is the renewal process that we want to see, so that we can, through this process, forge this revolutionary unity. Calling out wrong or deviant behavior that demeans the standing of the ANC is protecting the ANC. Our renewal process must tell us that we want to protect the ANC, its standing, its existence, and its effectiveness. Protecting the ANC is a revolutionary imperative. When we join the ANC, we voluntarily assume the duty to protect and to defend the movement, its aims and policies. When one assumes a leadership position in this movement, the membership rightly believes that comrades have a more advanced understanding of the rights and duties of being an ANC member, that they would be well within their rights to be appalled when such a leader defies the movement and undermines its standing, its existence, and its unity. It is therefore always said for the ANC, when we see some of its leaders behaving in a manner that portrays a less than ideal understanding of the culture, the values, the principles, and the policies of our movement. The ANC is a caring organization, but our care and understanding must not be misconstrued. Comrades, we must arrive at a point where we will not tolerate devious behavior that undermines the standing of this glorious movement and diminishes its standing and its integrity. And it is in this regard, comrades, that the 54th conference urged us to draw a line in the sand and say, we are going to reclaim the integrity of the African National Congress. I have full confidence that delegates to this provincial conference who would have applied their minds fully to the mission of our organization and identified leaders who are best suited to the task at hand. And I'm glad that having done so, you've elected your leaders to continue with their task on an uncontested basis. And therefore you have confidence and trust in them, because if they had not distinguished themselves as being the types of leaders that are needed for this moment in our movement's existence, you would not have elected them. And I would say to those who have been elected, both at branch level at regional level, as well as at provincial level, be it on the PEC or on the officials level. They must be humbled that confidence has been placed and invested in them. For leadership is about humility. It is about being willing to serve our people and our movement. And we must forever remember that our historic mission is to unite the people of South Africa behind the goals of the National Democratic Revolution. And we cannot do so if we ourselves are not grounded, well grounded in our knowledge and understanding of ANC principles, policies, values. And if we are not grounded amongst our people. Renewing the ANC means that we must strengthen our movement and enable it to serve the people selflessly and in a manner that builds our organization, our people, and our nation. Whilst COVID-19 disrupted physical meetings and other planned organizational activities, the ANC and the Alliance managed to organize many online and other activities under challenging conditions. And in doing so, we continued our activities to renew the ANC, the Alliance, and the broader mass democratic movement. The human spirit and the breadth of our ingenuity and adaptability is really encouraging. We led many programs and campaigns as the campaign against racism, in support of Palestine, against gender-based violence. And very importantly, we led campaigns to promote adherence to COVID-19 regulations. We also managed, comrades, to strengthen and renew bonds with many progressive formations, both inside and outside the country. I also hasten to add, we managed to reach out to some comrades and people who we would not have reached except through virtual means. At the same time, we probably did not reach many of our members and supporters who do not have access to modern technology. As we are likely to be heading into a period of reduced physical interaction over the next few weeks as a result of the pandemic, I urge you to discuss how we can sustain a vibrant organizational life under COVID conditions. Now, we always say that the ANC belongs to all of us. There is room for everyone who will abide by its mission, values, and ethos. Unfortunately, there have been some amongst us who did not live according to this principle. Gatekeeping has been a number of instances to the order of the day, and that can no longer be tolerated. The ANC must be at the center of every campaign, every struggle, and every popular community organization that serve the interests of our people. We must be the driving force of every street committee, every community safety forum, and every civic organization. In other words, comrades, the ANC must be everywhere, at every time, and in every way possible. If we are truly to lead society, then we must be part of that society and earn the support of the people by serving with integrity, with dignity, and humility. It is therefore important that, comrades, we should put the African National Congress as the center of all activity where we are. Now, COVID-19 has shown a harsh light on who we are as a people, and we can be proud of much of what it exposed. Stories of human solidarity abound, with many examples of communities coming together to care for the poor, the indigent, and in their midst. This was in addition to the comprehensive social assistance program that government put in place. At the same time, there were some unscrupulous and inhuman individuals who used COVID-19 to steal from the people. Law enforcement will continue to deal with these. Substance abuse continues to affect our communities severely, and the response to the recent temporary stoppages of the sale of alcohol has illustrated that South Africa has a complicated, possibly unhealthy relationship with alcohol. We need to do more in-depth research and have a comprehensive national discussion about this matter. And I urge you to have regard to this during your policy discussions. How can we address this alcohol challenge? It is huge. We are reputed to be possibly amongst the top 3 hugely alcohol consuming countries. And alcohol consumption leads to gender-based violence, which continues to plague our communities. It affects people from all walks of life and is pervasive. Our response to gender-based violence should go beyond the criminal justice system and speak to the social factors underlying this scourge. And this is where the ANC needs to show leadership. We must address issues of patriarchy and toxic masculinity that allow men and boys to assume that women and girls are inferior to them. We must also empower women and girls socially and economically to enable them to get out of abusive environments. In addition, ANC cadres must mobilize and put pressure on public representatives to ensure that we embark on programs that will rid our country of gender-based violence. Fortunately, in Parliament, the bills and the laws or the legislation that has to deal with this is just about to be finalized, if not finalized this past week. It will soon come to my table as president, and I will make sure that it's signed and inaugurated. Much more insidious has been the prevalence, comrades, of sexism in our own movement. And this we must say directly, because it is insidious and it is really sickening that male comrades would tend to push women comrades out of existing positions of leadership and verbally attack women in public or on social media, or otherwise prevent women from even standing for positions. We must not allow this to happen in our movement. Women comrades must enjoy the fullness of membership of the ANC and be able to take up responsibilities as leaders. And I'm pleased, Comrade Zamani, to hear that, yes, you've created a really good balance between men and women in the leadership. Comrades, one of the ANC's fundamental values is that of non-racialism. However, of late, there have been a creeping erosion of this value in our movement. We have observed incidents of overt and covert racist attacks by members, and this must be condemned with all the contempt it needs. This has also tended to go beyond just the ANC purely and affect structures of our alliance and the mass democratic movement. The ANC must respond swiftly and decisively whenever it encounters racism within its midst or in our country. We know all too well the high price our people have paid under a racist regime, and we must not and cannot and must never allow it to recur. The ANC long ago and consistently since then made a deliberate choice that our movement will be non-racial. And that is the character of the ANC. But that is also the character of the South Africa that the NDR calls on us to achieve. We made a deliberate, clear choice. And it led to, yes, divisions, and the ANC, when it parted with another organization, because the leadership and the membership felt we must remain steadfast to this important value of non-racialism. And it is around this that our movement did swear that it will unite the people of this country on the basis of non-racialism. As illustrated by the departure of the group of 8 in 1975, this decision was not without its challenges, also in the 60s. However, the ANC took a principled decision that it will not judge comrades based on their skin color, but on their contribution to our struggle. The correctness of this decision continues to be borne out today. We need to remember what one of our leaders, who was the spirit behind the formation of the ANC and became president of the ANC, when he said, and that was Pixley Kaisakasem, and he said, the demon of racialism, the aberrations of the Xhosa Fingo feud, the animosity that exists between Zulus and Tongas, between the Basotho and every other native, must be buried and forgotten. It has shed amongst us sufficient blood. We are one people. These divisions, these jealousies are the cause of all our woes and all our backwardness and ignorance today. And comrades, we are greatly admired on the continent of Africa and internationally for having embraced this very important principle of non-racialism. Because where it does not exist, there is strife, there is conflict, and we can see in a number of cases on our continent. And we may think that this is horrific, it manifests itself in horrible ways, but it starts small amongst us, where it is sometimes said that we will not be led by so-and-so because he is this and that. We will not be led by this one because he is, and this group is dominating. That, comrades, is un-ANC, and we must not and we will not allow it. I will also not allow it for as long as I'm president, because it goes against the ethos of what the ANC is all about. The demon of racialism is the cause of all woes, as Pixley Kaisakasem said. South Africa, like the rest of the world, is experiencing this resurgence of racism, and the ANC needs to become even more steadfast in reasserting our commitment. And we must lead on this issue. We have, unfortunately, also experienced and observed racism, tribalism, and other forms of completely unacceptable backward behavior here in the Northern Cape. And this will not stand. And as Comrade Zamani said last night, we do not refer to one another as the COSA chairperson or the Tswana treasurer. We are ANC members and South Africans. And such language must never, ever, ever be heard and repeated in the African National Congress at all costs. The ANC, as the leader of society, bears an enhanced responsibility to honor the task placed upon us by former President O.R. Tambo and ensure that there are no black or white South Africans, as he said, just South Africans. Our other important task, comrades, is to strengthen developmental participatory local government and achieve a decisive win in the upcoming local government elections. We are scheduled to have these elections. Local government is the sphere of government closest to the people and best placed to address the people's needs. I visited Pampierstad and other towns during the 2020 January 8 celebrations and saw once again what a difference local government makes in the lives of people. What I observed during that visit was a clear failure of local government, and it reaffirmed to me that if we do not strengthen local government, capacitated both with capable officials and leaders, we are doing an enormous disservice to our people. In fact, I would term it a betrayal of our revolution. In choosing local councillors, we must choose representatives who we know will ensure that our people have access to housing, our children have access to safe schools, and there should be safe water and sanitation facilities. And we urge all of us to choose the best amongst us to represent the ANC at the polls. And comrades, when I say the best amongst us, I'd like us to reflect on that. What does the best amongst us mean? It means those comrades who will carry the flag of the ANC in relation to its values, its principles, and what it stands for. But also must be comrades who are hard workers, who are deeply rooted in our communities. And there should be comrades who are capable and willing to serve selflessly. Not just comrades who have won a popularity contest, but comrades who the community trusts will be able to do the work. Our processes to choose candidates for the local government elections must be conducted transparently and according to the guidelines. Let us not repeat the mistakes of the past where there were instances of deviation from accepted norms and guidelines. And I know sometimes it is tempting, but it is when we are tempted to deviate that we face problems later on. We will have to be very innovative and adapt to using new tactics to reach communities if we are unable to do face-to-face campaigning under pandemic conditions. I want to put it as a challenge to the delegates to come up with few innovative proposals on how to campaign and to mobilize our voters as we are now going to move into the third wave. Most importantly, let us mobilize safely. I've been reading a book, comrades, about how another country, important country, escaped the poverty trap, and that is China. One of the things they say is that they focus on the local government sphere. And it was the local government sphere that ensured the growth of the economy. And I know at times we say local government has nothing and there's no tax base and all that. I'd like to put it as a challenge to all of us that let us sit back and think what it is that we can do at local government level. One, to mobilize investments. to make an investment climate more conducive for those who would want to invest. How we can boost the revenue of our local government, and how all of us can contribute to make our local government be a living government that can serve our people. It is important that we reflect on this because, yes, national government has a lot to do to support local government, and we are going to embark on that. We've got 257 municipalities, and many of them, about 203 or 30 of them, are in dire straits. We need to pay attention. But we also, even during this conference, let's see how we can come up with strategies of how we can use some self-help measures. And let us not be browbeat into submission and think that, oh, the situation is hopeless, there's nothing we can do. Let us see how best we even want to engage with national government, yes, to make more resources available, but resources that we will use effectively. So it is important that we focus on the local government sphere. At the national level, comrades, we're working quite hard to strengthen the capacity of government. We want our government, which has been weakened over time, to be strengthened, to operate at a fairly capable level, and to ensure that what went wrong in the past is put right, and we streamline things in a way where government can be an attractive center again, that our people can have confidence in, where young people can see that they can make careers of working for government, and where we can rid our country of corruption and malfeasance, and where we can ensure that we have people who are just driven by nothing else but working to advance the interests of our people. The fifth priority, comrades, is a better world, a better Africa and a better world. I was telling President of France that South Africa's foreign policy trajectory is based on creating a better Africa. And everything that we seek to do in terms of foreign policy revolves around our continent. We are inherently Pan-Africanist. And even as we sit in various structures around the world, be it the G20, BRICS, and get invited to the G7 and sit at the UN and all other, we will be pushing the African flag and agenda vigorously. And of course, we've got to look at our own interests. Our own interests as a nation are primary. But at the same time, yes, we do want a better Africa and a better world. Now, this pandemic has really shown the interconnectedness of the world and proved how much all nations need to cooperate for mutual development and human prosperity. African nations managed to cooperate almost from the start of the pandemic, developing a continental response strategy, setting up the African Response Fund, the African Medical Supplies Platform. We worked together. And in many ways, this was like the precursor, I would say, of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Because we tasted through this COVID, much as it is a devastating virus, there was an opportunity, and this is the opportunity that Comrade Zamani was talking about. What were the opportunities? It gave us an opportunity as a continent that is fiercely Pan-Africanist. And this is how we as South Africa also approached our task when we were chair of the AU. We were fiercely Pan-Africanist, advancing the interests of our continent. There is no other continent in the whole world that worked as closely during the pandemic as we did and embarked on a number of initiatives. And South Africa was playing the lead role in all this, but mobilized people. And as we mobilized them, we were transnational. We did not focus on work being done by South Africans only. And if we did, it was just a few South Africans. But in the main, we mobilized talent on the continent. We created this powerful medical supplies platform on which we, as South Africa, also traded through our companies to a tune of 2 billion. Because what had happened was, as the PPEs became scarce around the world as the pandemic started, there was a race around the world for PPEs. Now, your northern countries, they just poured billions into buying masks, ventilators, and everything. And all of a sudden, when we wanted them as a continent, they were either expensive or not available. And that is where I phoned, some of the known manufacturers and said, we want you to assist us with PPEs. Xi Jinping mobilized him. We even spoke to Trump and said, we want ventilators for the continent, and got him to agree. And so we mobilized, but also created this vaccine supply platform. And the wonderful thing, comrades, about this is that we also got the Caribbean to come and purchase their PPEs. The platform succeeded in reducing prices dramatically. And so the various suppliers came onto this platform. But as the vaccines became available, we then set up the Africa Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, which has succeeded in mobilizing up to 400 million vaccines, which, after the blockages that exist, are now going to be freed to vaccinate the population in our continent. So in that regard, our drive for a better Africa and a better world has worked well and continues to do so, because South Africa's leadership has been noticed, accepted, and embraced, and it continues to the benefit of all others. We are also engaged, comrades, in the situation in northern Mozambique. It's a matter that should concern all of us. We just had a summit recently, and we are going to be embarking on initiatives that are going to give assistance to our fellow brothers and sisters in Mozambique. Comrades, our principal support for the peoples of Palestine in their right for self-determination is unwavering. We will continue to urge for peace and a solution to this conflict that is premised on a just settlement that facilitates equality and equity for all who have a right to live in the territories of Israel and Palestine. So our support of Palestinians is unwavering. And we've been appalled at the behavior of Israel through all this. And we remember the resolution that we took at our 54th conference, which we have implemented, but we now need to be looking at what else needs to be done, because we cannot continue countenancing the bombing of people's homes and we sit back. Here on our continent also, we will not rest until the people of Western Sahara have realized their independence. As mandated by our 54th conference, We continue to intensify our solidarity with the Sahrawi people and will give much more practical assistance whenever possible. In conclusion, comrades, let me reiterate, we must unite and unite based on the principles and values of our glorious movement. And we must serve our people selflessly. Mom Charlotte Maxeke said it best. And she said, this work is not for ourselves. Kill that spirit of self and do not live above your people, but live with them. And if you can rise, bring someone with you. And that, comrades, more than any other statement, for me defines what we as leaders, as all of you who are here are leaders, what we as leaders of the African National Congress must be all about. It must be about the people of our country. When you stop putting the people of South Africa ahead of your own interests, then something is seriously wrong. The African National Congress that we all join is about the people. It's about leaders serving. It's about adhering to the values and the principles of the African National Congress. Comrades, there's nothing that gives me more joy than being a servant of our people and serving them under the aegis of the African National Congress. I thank you and say Amandla. And thank you very much, comrades.
Well, that's the president of the ANC addressing the ANC's Provincial Elective Conference currently underway in the Northern